Welcome to my YouTube channel, One Racing Race Days, Thursday, October 21st,
The war had
2021.
been fought. The North's conciliatory embrace of the former Confederates compelled Frederick Douglass to remind Americans that there was a right side and a wrong side in the late war, which no sentiment ought to cause us to forget, adding that it is no part of our duty to confound right with wrong or loyalty with treason. Joining us now is Isabel Wilkerson, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and the author of the New York Times bestseller, Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent. Isabel, I've been very eager to talk to you, as I always am, but coming off of that discussion that we were just having here about the primacy of the Civil War in the way we think about where we are today.
Well, I think that when we think about how divided we are as a nation, I'm reminded of how the majority of Americans don't get a chance, have not gotten the opportunity to know our country's true history, our true and full history. And one of the reasons why I can say that is because with the books that I've written, one of the major responses that I get is from people is that they'll say to me, I had no idea. I had no idea that this happened in our country. I had no idea that this happened in my region of the country. I had no idea. And not having an idea has consequences because people, when they don't have an idea, then that means that it's harder to see what we have in common. It's harder to get on the same page about how we got to where we are. It's harder to understand how we happen to be where we are. And, you know, when you think about the Civil War, I mean, in most wars, it is the victors who write the story. It's the victors who erect the monuments to their victory. And in the Civil War in this country, in our country, it was actually those who were defeated who ended up erecting monuments to themselves, in some ways memorializing the symbolism of their cause, and then dominating the narrative, ultimately, from Birth of a Nation to Gone with the Wind. And so there was never a true reckoning after the Civil War. And for that reason, we're still reliving it. It's almost as if there's a feedback loop that continues to this day.
It seems, and I'm just throwing this out there as one of the things that didn't happen, that could have left the marker of a reckoning. I mean, if, for example, there had been some penalty exacted upon the states that made war on the other states. I mean, just as an example, if we said, okay, welcome back to the United States of America, each one of you now get one senator instead of two. And there would have been that, we would have had that permanent thing that we got to see about there's a price. There's something happened, something grievous happened for which a price had to be paid.
You're absolutely right. There were no consequences. There were no consequences to moving forward. First of all, the goal was to reunite the country, to keep the country intact, and that is what occurred. But you know, when I think about how disconnected we are from our history, speaking to your point, you know, it's hard to get past the idea of slavery and the fact that slavery was a central part of the Southern economy and the Southern way of life. And it was that way of life that was one of the central aspects of what the war was about. And I want to say a little bit about what slavery really means, how it's connected to how we are, where we are now. First of all, slavery lasted for so long, it lasted for 246 years. That's 12 generations. How many greats do we have to add to the word grandparent to begin to imagine, to begin to comprehend how long slavery lasted? Slavery lasted for so long that, and this is an important thing to note, it will not be until next year, 2022, that the United States will have been a free and independent nation for as long as slavery lasted on this soil. Slavery lasted for so long that no adult alive today will be alive at the point at which African Americans will have been free for as long as African Americans were enslaved. That will not happen until the year 2111. It will not be until the second decade of the 22nd century that African Americans will have been free for as long as they were enslaved, that there will be parity between freedom and enslavement. And that is an astonishing very sobering way of looking at what our country has been through. And, we have not addressed, much less reconciled this history. I mean, we have to, those of us alive today have to find a way to explain to succeeding generations, how is it that we saw a Confederate flag inside the United States Capitol this year, January 6th? How is it that a rioter was able to deliver the Confederate flag farther than Robert E. Lee himself? That is what those of us alive today are tasked with having to explain to succeeding generations. And this is a reminder that we are still living with the aftermath and consequences of this war.
Isabel Wilkerson, thank you very much, as always.